Good morning. Thank you all for joining us this morning, and to Industry, Energy and Technology Minister Andrew Parsons for being here as well. We have an exciting announcement to share with you this morning, and one that we're all particularly proud of, because it's a fine example of creative thinking, of finding solutions underneath the stones we have scattered across our path right now. Turning them over and seeing something new.
Thank you all for joining us this morning, and to Industry, Energy and
To
Technology.
Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, I've promised you to do this, to work tirelessly, day in and day out, all in the name of leading us through this time of transition, leading us through it into a prosperous, bright future. And step by step, with measures like this one and many more, we will get there. Today, I'm pleased to announce the establishment of a new offshore exploration initiative. This policy measure that will allow all future bid deposits that are forfeited to be reinvested in this important oil and gas industry. With that option for reinvestment, the hard-working people in the oil and gas industry will have more opportunities. You, the women and men, the families who rely on Newfoundland and Labrador's offshore oil industry, you are the ones we as a government want to benefit from this. So let me just explain a little bit more, and Minister Parsons can share more details. Right now, a successful bidder or company has to post a security deposit to get to work. That deposit represents 25% of the total amount of money the bidder commits to spend on offshore oil exploration within a set period of time. We want to see the companies complete their drilling programs as committed through their bids. But if they don't meet their work commitment, if they don't complete those programs, and there's deposit money left, the balance ends up right now going into the general treasury. It's no longer directly invested in the important offshore oil industry. It's no longer generating the revenue that it could be used for future exploration. Right now, there are nearly $1 billion of security deposits held by the CNLOPB against future work commitments. While these security deposits are meaningful incentives, historically, 30 to 40% of bid deposits have been forfeited. That means there's a potential of $300 to $400 million that can be reinvested in Newfoundland and Labrador's offshore. So this new offshore exploration incentive will mean that those forfeited deposits, money moved away from the industry normally, can be reinvested today into offshore exploration projects. It has a second chance to be used with maximum effect to yield those high-impact discoveries that create a bright future for our province. Future projects that can continue to help position Newfoundland and Labrador as a global leader with one of the lowest carbon per barrel footprints in the world. Oil and gas development and commitment to action on climate change are not mutually exclusive in Newfoundland and Labrador. We can be the green battery that powers Eastern Canada and beyond. Newfoundland and Labrador is uniquely positioned with a wealth of energy resources and a wealth of smart, creative, hard-working people to maximize those precious resources, and work together in an all-hands-on-deck approach to ensure this province has a bright future for our children and for theirs. So I'll turn it over right now to Minister Parsons.
Thank you, Premier, and good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to join the Premier here today in announcing a new offshore exploration initiative, one that will provide companies with the incentive to drill more wells in the best prospects. This initiative provides us with the opportunity to capitalize on the success we have had to date in work commitment bids offshore. Let's put this into perspective. We have received winning bids from the global industry totaling nearly $4 billion over the past 6 years. These recent commitments total significantly more than the $2.6 billion in offshore bids received in the previous 25 years, from 1988 to 2013. Further proof that our exploration strategy is unlocking global interest in our offshore. Recent record bids have resulted in nearly $1 billion of security deposit currently being held by the CNL-OPB against future work. While these security deposits are meaningful incentives, it is not uncommon for a portion of those bid deposits to be forfeit in the ebb and flow of changing corporate strategies and priorities or enhanced views on drilling prospects. As Premier Furey has said, historically between 30 to 40% of bid deposits have been forfeit, resulting in the potential for $300 to $400 million to be reinvested. While momentum has been building offshore, companies have faced significant challenges in achieving their exploration objectives, putting significant expenditure commitments at risk. Nowhere else in our economy will we see such a potential lost opportunity in combining special capabilities and scarce capital. We recognize this, and we have the ability to put in place a made in Newfoundland and Labrador solution to a global competitiveness problem. Today, we are establishing an offshore exploration initiative that will receive all future bid deposit forfeitures and make these funds available to encourage companies to drill more wells in the best prospects in the shortest time. We will ensure that those funds are reinvested back into our offshore with maximum effect to yield those high-impact discoveries that create our future projects. These are industry funds pledged by companies for investment in our offshore, and rather than go unutilized as world-class prospects await discovery, they should be invested. This will ensure that exploration dollars committed by the global industry in Newfoundland and Labrador's offshore will be used for exploration here to find our next discoveries. We will continually work for the benefit of our province, our oil and gas industry, and our people to help get our economy back on its feet and our residents back to work. Announcements like the ones made here today are just one piece of the larger puzzle to help make this happen. Thank you, and I turn it back to the Premier.
Thank you, Minister Parsons. We'll now invite questions from the media.
Thank you, Premier Furey and Minister Parsons. Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Lawler. I am the Media Relations Manager for the Department of Industry, Energy, and Technology. I will be the moderator on the call today. For the benefit of our speakers, we have 5 reporters registered for today's call. We will now begin with reporter questions. I have a list of everyone who has registered. We will pass through the list by order of registration so everyone is able to ask 2 questions and 1 follow-up. We will then proceed with an additional round of single questions as required until 11:50. I ask that you keep your phones on mute until called upon. Up first, we have Mike Connors with NTV. Please go ahead.
Hi, just first of all, on the announcement you just made, if these forfeited bids were going to general revenue and now you're going to put them back into exploration, does that affect the province's bottom line at all? Like, was this money that was being used for other areas of government services?
Well, right now, I mean, that was being returned to the General Treasury, but we believe that it would be reinvested in the offshore exploration such that a $100 million oil well, if you will, returns $30 million directly to the Treasury itself. So this is neutral in our perspective, and right now it incentivizes important exploration projects to create jobs.
If I could follow up on that, Premier, one thing to note to the public is that this is not funded by taxpayers. This is money actually invested by the industry, and it's absolutely near impossible to actually budget this because it's hard to know what this amount is going to be in any given year. Our hope is that it will be zero because that means work is actually happening and exploration is happening. So it's extremely hard to budget, and we think we've made an excellent move here that will help get people in this province back to work.
Turning to yesterday's throne speech in Ottawa, they're going to be supporting the Atlantic Loop. Minister O'Regan has said that will basically connect Muskrat Falls into Quebec and then Quebec into New Brunswick. How will this new connection, will this do anything to help offset the cost of Muskrat Falls that ratepayers in Newfoundland and Labrador have to bear?
Well, I think it was exciting to hear that it was discussed in the speech from the throne yesterday, and I look forward to having those discussions with the federal government. Hopefully we can, this is what I've always said, that there is value to be had in Muskrat Falls and we need to unlock it. And using projects like the Atlantic Loop, hopefully can return important value and important return to ratepayers and taxpayers alike in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Are there any talks ongoing with Hydro-Quebec and the maritime utilities about what the actual price you'd get for those export sales?
Not currently. This is all, I mean, I heard the speech from the throne yesterday like everybody else, so we're trying to work together right now to come up with a plan and a strategy.
Thank you. Up next, we have Ben Murphy with the OCM. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Premier Furey, just in simple terms, can you just break down and explain how this is going to help mom and dad sitting at home?
Well, how it'll help mom and dad sitting at home is what we hope it does, and what I think it will do, and what we believe it will do is incentivize exploration. So it'll incentivize drillers, rig workers, it'll incentivize companies to go back out and explore. And of course, from an exploration, from a positive hit, come projects. So we want to capitalize on the good oil and gas that we know that is out available in the field right now, and we believe this program will do so, and thereby create jobs.
And I did want to ask as well about the Atlantic Loop announced yesterday. And I'm just trying to have some trouble of how does it make economical sense with transmission costs through Quebec, the Maritimes, and Labrador, and still making a profit? How would that make sense economically?
Well, these are all discussions that we're going to have with our partners throughout Atlantic Canada and Quebec and with the federal government. But right now, we have an asset that is green, or it's almost complete, and we need to maximize the value of that asset for the ratepayers and the taxpayers of this province. And I was excited to hear the mention of it in the throne speech yesterday. It means that it's on the federal government's radar. It means it's something that they would like to see, and we need to make sure we're well positioned to capitalize on the green energy that we have here in Newfoundland and Labrador.
How would this whole thing get started? Would it be here in Quebec? Because I would imagine there would have to be quite a bit of infrastructure that would have to go in place to make this even possible.
Yeah, those are all, I mean, they mentioned it about 12 or 14 hours ago. Those are all details that we'll have to assess and move and strategize around moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Peter Cowan with CBC. Please go ahead.
Can you give me an idea how much has come into the provincial treasury over the last few years, whatever figures you happen to have handy, from these forfeited deposits?
Well, I don't have that figure here, Peter. That can be determined fairly simply. But if you look at the fact that over from 88 to 2013, there was $2.6 billion in exploration bids. You take 25% of that, and roughly there's about 37% historically is the default rate. So you take that, and that's generally what we got. But I mean, it changes every year. But those are numbers we can easily get and have provided to you after this. Not a problem.
So if this was money that was going to be the province's money, but it's being given to the oil companies for exploration, will the province be expecting that this is essentially an investment and they'll receive an equity stake in these projects in return for giving this cash?
You go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, this is just one piece of a larger puzzle here, and this is an incentive. I mean, anybody in this province saw what was going on last week. We have a lot of people that are worried about their futures, and one of the things that we need, and you only have to listen to people like Bill Fanning, who's got a huge history in this. One of the things that we need immediately is exploration to continue. If there's no exploration, there are no finds. If there are no finds, we have no development, and that's the thing that we need for this future. So exploration must continue. This is money that in many ways was hard to budget, and it's not out of the treasury. So going back to a question earlier, what this means, I mean, if you take $100 million exploration will, there's some figures that say that will contribute roughly $84 million to the Canadian GDP and create 625 jobs. That's if you don't find anything. If you find something, I mean, it means billions to this province, and that's going into all the things that we need, whether it's healthcare, whether it's our economy, whether it's teachers, you name it. So that's why this is so important. This is just, as a province, we only have so many levers we can pull. This is one that we've done, and we think it's positive for the future of this province.
And how will you decide which projects get the money and which ones don't?
Well, this is part of the criteria that we're working on. And obviously, there are concerns here. I mean, when you have a policy like this, you need to ensure that you don't have a gaming of the system that can happen. So there is still some details to work out here, because it's just what we don't want. And again, it depends on if people have bids in. It depends on if they don't have bids in, what is the amount. So that's something we are still finalizing right now. And I think that, again, we're encouraging people to want to be a part of this, to avail of this funding, because right now, if they didn't, in many cases, if they have a bid in that they default on, is money lost to them. This is an opportunity to get back and to continue exploration. And again, this is mutually beneficial to the operators, to the province, and more importantly, to the people of this province, including the workers.
Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from Ashley Fitzpatrick, allnewfoundlandlabrador.com. Please go ahead.
Thanks. I'm looking for, I guess, a better understanding of how the reinvestment works, if there's any particular mechanism by which that happens, and secondary to that, when you expect all of this to potentially come into effect.
Yes, there's more details that will follow. Today is just the announcement. And one of the big reasons for the timing on this, I would just put this out, is that we have a resource assessment that will be coming out in the very near future, talking about the exciting prospects that we have. And the second part is that the deadline is coming up in early November for the next round of bid deposits. So we needed this incentive out to these companies now who are literally in the process of deciding where, are they going to be exploring? I mean, right now, exploration budgets around the world are being very dramatically reduced. So we want to put this incentive out now as they, go into the final stages of their planning. There's still some work that we need to consider, small policy details, talking about criteria, when should the rebates be processed, things too, like maybe there won't be a rebate on the first, but as you get into further exploration, there's more incentive behind that. We want people to be incentivized to drill, to explore, because we know that it's a win for everybody involved.
Okay. Just a quick question on the Atlantic Loop. Around this time last year, I was talking with Minister Cody about two pieces: the province's renewable energy plan, which she was telling folks to expect this year, and the Clean Power Roadmap work, because it was about $2 million of federal funding and ongoing discussions there. There was going to be some sort of studies that would involve Newfoundland and Labrador running into 2021. And basically, I'm just looking for an update on those two pieces, the renewable energy plan and the Clean Power Roadmap. And does any of this fit with what the Atlantic Loop is that was referenced?
Well, what I can say is to echo the Premier's comments. I mean, this is very new. I was driving across the province yesterday and getting the updates on the radio about the Atlantic Loop actually being mentioned. And it was only just in the last little while that I actually had my mandate letter from the Premier where he specifically mentioned the Clean Power Roadmap and the renewable energy plan. So what I can say is there's been a lot of work ongoing. And again, certainly I've been getting up to speed, but you take the Premier and Siobhan Cody, they're obviously very involved in that. One of the things now, though, is that all the work that we've done, now we have this added, extra part about the Atlantic Loop being mentioned federally. So it's exciting. And so there's more information to come. We'll be making more announcements in the future on this, but there's still a lot of work that has to be incorporated into that was already done.
Thank you. Up next, we have David Marr with the Telegram. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So on the bids that are coming in there, so if a company, has sat on the bid, the deposit is now forfeit. Now that's going back to the company. Would that company then have the opportunity to kind of rebid on the, on the project that they just lost the deposit? Well, I guess they still regain their deposit, but would the opportunity go back to the same company?
David, if you wouldn't mind, could you repeat that question again? I had a little bit of trouble hearing. If you couldn't just say it over again, please.
Yeah. My apologies. Yeah. If a company has, set on that bid, and now, and it was forfeit, and kind of with the process here, would the same company have the opportunity to make it another work commitment, or would the opportunity open up to another company?
Well, David, what we're hoping to accomplish here is an incentive on both sides of that equation. So if the company is considering forfeiting, then hopefully this incentivizes them to use the money to continue their work commitment. If not, then it could go, depending on the parameters that are set, to other companies. But there would be nothing, I don't think, that would exclude, although it would be awkward for them to rebid on an abandoned commitment. But I don't think we would exclude anyone from rebidding on a piece of work.
And just to follow up from the Premier there, the reality is that these companies make these bids, which have been quite significant in the last 4 years, knowing that there's the 25% security deposit. They have the ability to walk away knowing that they lose the deposit here. At the end of the day, we're just trying to find ways to incentivize that they do the exploration. That's what we want. We need the exploration to happen. I don't think the companies or the province just wants that sunk cost, because there's so much benefit to actually doing the work. There will be parameters around this to ensure that we're not making anything more difficult here. If anything, we have a lot of good operators and good workers out there. We want to help these companies be even more competitive in trying to explore and invest in this offshore in our province.
Thank you. And on the Atlantic Loop, I'm wondering, can you outline what agreements are currently in place, whether it's with this province of Quebec or with this province of the federal government, that would, that already exist that could make this project possible?
That already exists surrounding the Atlantic Loop. I mean, my understanding is there has been a request from the Atlantic premiers to investigate this preceding me, but no formal agreements per se.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have went through the first round of questions, and we now have time for another round of single questions. So up first is Mike Connors with NTV. Please go ahead.
On the Atlantic Loop, so is it your understanding that Quebec is on board with this as well? Will the province be able to wheel this power through Quebec, or will it have to pay Quebec to use transmission?
Again, these are details that are premature to talk about. I mean, we again heard the mention of it yesterday in the speech from the throne, but I am excited that Newfoundland and Labrador can be that green battery that drives potentially through Quebec, potentially through our existing assets, potentially through upgrades. I'm speculating here about what this could look like, but I want to assure everybody that Newfoundland and Labrador will get the best value for the assets that we have and allow us to move the economic needle for our province.
Thank you. Up next, we have Ben Murphy, VOCM. Please go ahead.
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. Peter Cowan, CBC.
A lot of the oil and gas companies are essentially looking for money now for exploration because cash is short. Can you give me an idea, is there any money that's already been forfeited that will be part of this, or how many of these bids are set to expire over the next year or so that might be eligible?
Yeah, what I can say is that for the 2021 year, I think it's up to about $46 million that is eligible under the security deposits. That number increases because obviously the bid values have gone up tremendously over the last 4 years. So that amount increases quite significantly going forward. So again, that's why we think it's exciting, because it's not a small amount of money. And hopefully it will tip these companies. Again, we're competing globally here. This is something that, we have to do what we can as a jurisdiction to ensure that exploration continues. And so, that money will increase. But again, I would point out one thing here, that we would hope not to invest anything, because not investing means that money is being spent in exploration that was committed to.
And not to lose sight of the fact, Peter, sorry for interrupting that, but to repeat the fact that exploration leads to jobs, and discovery from exploration leads to more jobs. But we can't get to those more jobs until we get to exploration, and we need to incentivize this. This is a lever at our fingertips that we need to pull, and the minister and I and our government have decided that this is a good move in order to get that pipeline started.
And sorry, can I just clarify? I know I only got one question there, but that $46 million, is that money that's already been forfeited or is set to expire and may or may not be forfeited?
No, that is the amount that is theoretically possible depending on what happens for 2021. So it could be less than that. But again, that's what's available for 2021 based on the numbers we have.
Thank you. Up next is Ashley Fitzpatrick, allnewfoundlandlabrador.com. Please go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to be 100% clear on the general treasury piece of this. Is this money that would go into the provincial treasury otherwise? Just for the CNLBB is that joint entity. I want to be sure on where this is coming from.
You go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, so this is money that if it is forfeit or default, it would go into Treasury, and the amount has changed. Some years there may be nothing, and the hope is that, as we've said, that there's nothing, because that means the expirations happen and the jobs that come with it. But from, I guess, the finance point of view, it's hard to account for it, or I guess budget or plan for it, because you don't know if it's going to happen or not. And the other thing, as opposed to other investments that government makes, this is not actually money coming out of the Treasury. So there's no net loss. This does not affect Minister Cody's budget for this year. So this is an investment that we are able to make with the offshore.
And it's a creative way to unlock value. I mean, because of other initiatives by other governments, we'd love to be able to have the opportunity to muse about how we would spend billions of dollars if we had it. But of course, someone else has spent that. And so we need to be creative about how we unlock value. And this is a way to do it with very little, actually no risk to Newfoundland taxpayers.
Thank you. Up next, we have David Maher with the Telegram. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The time for questions has now ended. Please forward along any follow-up questions you may have to the department. Thank you, everybody, for participating in today's availability.
Thank you.